The wind howled through the lonely streets as he stood there, drenched in rain, waiting for a bus that never seemed to come. It was the kind of night when most people hurried home, but he couldn't, not when he saw her. A woman standing under the flickering streetlight, shivering, her arms wrapped around herself for warmth. Without thinking twice, he slipped off his old, torn jacket and placed it over her shoulders. She looked up at him, her lips trembling as if to say something, but only one tear rolled down her cheek. He didn't know it then, but that simple act of kindness was about to change his entire life. Because the woman he helped that night wasn't just anyone. She was someone powerful enough to rewrite his fate. The next morning, he went back to his routine fixing cars, wiping oil off his hands and smiling through struggle. He didn't expect to see her again, but fate has a strange way of returning the good we give. When a luxury car stopped at the garage and she stepped out, his heart skipped a beat. She wasn't the shivering stranger from the bus stop anymore. She looked like someone from another world. And when she handed him his clean jacket back, saying, "You already helped me once, now let me return the favor," he didn't realize that she was about to open doors he never believed he could walk through. He stood the next day before a towering glass building that reflected the sky, a place he never imagined entering. Inside waited the same woman, no longer cold, but warm with gratitude. She asked him questions no one ever had about his dreams, his struggles, his life. And when she offered him something beyond his wildest hopes, he almost couldn't speak. She wasn't just thanking him, she was testing something far deeper, the purity of his heart. From that night's single act of kindness, a new journey began, one that would prove how a worn jacket and a selfless heart could change not only a man's destiny, but remind even the most powerful of what truly matters. The cold night wind bit through the air like 1,000 invisible needles. Most people had already rushed into their cars or warm homes, but he stood there still, hands buried deep into the pockets of a worn-out jacket, waiting for a bus that always seemed to come late. His name was Ryan, a 29-year-old mechanic whose shoes had more holes than his wallet had money. Life had not been kind to him, but his heart still carried a warmth that not even winter could steal. It was 10:43 p.m. The streetlights flickered, and rain began to fall in thin silver sheets. That's when he saw her, a young woman standing a few feet away at the bus stop. She wasn't dressed for the cold. Her sleek office dress clung to her arms as she shivered uncontrollably, her heels sinking into the wet pavement. Ryan hesitated for a moment. She looked expensive, the kind of person who probably wouldn't even glance at someone like him. But then again, kindness wasn't about status, it was about humanity. Without a word, he took off his jacket, faded, patched in places, and far from elegant, and gently placed it around her shoulders. "You'll catch a cold," he said quietly. The woman looked up, startled, her eyes meeting his. For a brief moment, something flickered in her expression: surprise, gratitude, maybe even confusion. "You'll freeze," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "I'm used to it." The bus arrived minutes later, its headlights slicing through the darkness. She stepped on first and he followed, taking a seat near the back while she sat at the front. He didn't think much of it. It was just another night, another act of decency in a world that often forgot what that word meant. But for her, it wasn't just kindness, it was a reminder. The man who had nothing but gave everything. Her name was Elena, though few people ever used it. Most called her ma'am or Madame CEO. She ran a multinational company worth millions, a corporation that moved people like chess pieces. But for all her power, she felt something missing, something that boardrooms bonuses, and luxury couldn't fill. That night, after returning home, she hung the old jacket on a chair. It smelled faintly of grease and rain, but more than that, it smelled like sincerity. She couldn't stop thinking about the man at the bus stop, his calm eyes, his simple smile. The next morning, she asked her assistant to track the nearest mechanic shops in that area, her mind curious and unsettled. Meanwhile, Rayan was back under a car, his hands black with oil, humming quietly to himself. His boss barked orders from across the workshop, and customers barely looked his way. He didn't complain. Every small earning went to his mother's medicines and his younger sister's school fees. He had dreams once, to study engineering, to design something great, but dreams cost money, and life had bills to pay. Later that week, a luxury car rolled into the small workshop. The mechanics straightened up immediately, whispering among themselves. Out stepped Elena, her presence radiating quiet confidence. Everyone froze, everyone except Rayan, who didn't recognize her through the mud and noise. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he asked, wiping his hands. She looked at him for a long time, smiling faintly. "Yes, I think you already did." He blinked, confused. She gestured to the corner, where her assistant stood holding a familiar piece of fabric. His jacket, freshly cleaned and neatly folded. "You left this behind," she said softly. "Oh," he said awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. "I didn't mean to. I just didn't want you to be cold." She handed him a business card. "I'd like to return the favor. Come to this address tomorrow morning, if you can." He hesitated. "Ma'am, I don't think I belong anywhere fancy." Elena smiled. "Maybe that's exactly why you should come." The test of heart the next day, Rayan stood in front of a tall glass building that mirrored the sky. He almost turned back twice before stepping in. The receptionist guided him upstairs to a private office where Elena waited, her expression calm but kind. She offered him coffee, asked him about his life, his mother, his sister, his dreams. He spoke honestly, without self-pity or pride. When he finished, she looked thoughtful. "Rayan," she said finally, "I've met hundreds of people who wanted something from me, but you're the first person who gave something without expecting anything in return." He shrugged lightly. "Sometimes kindness is all we can afford." She smiled. "That's what makes it priceless." Then she stood, walked to her desk, and handed him an envelope. Inside was a job offer, an apprenticeship in her company's engineering division. "I read your background," she explained. "You had top grades before you dropped out. I think you deserve a second chance." Rayan was speechless. "Ma'am, why would you do this for me?" "Because you did something for me first," she said softly. "You reminded me that compassion isn't weakness, it's strength." Tears glimmered in his eyes. For years, life had only given him reasons to give up. Now, one act of kindness had rewritten his story. Months passed. Rayan's talent shone. He learned fast and worked harder than anyone else. Elena often watched from afar, proud and quietly grateful. What began as a chance encounter had turned into a friendship built on mutual respect and faith in simple goodness. One evening, as they stood on the balcony overlooking the city, Elena turned to him. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked. He smiled. "Every time I wear a jacket."